Yes, and then in the distance I heard the bulls. I began running as fast as I could. Fortunately, I was wearing my Italian Capto Oxfords, sophisticated yet different. Very much like Jeff Rimmer and Randy Raines. The world's seventh most interesting broadcast. Milkshake. Listen to it, or be damned.
Milkshake. Milkshake. Milkshake.
Milkshake.
Chocolate.
Yeah, I prefer strawberry, honestly. I can't get into chocolate milkshakes, man. They're gross.
No, chocolate malt, man. That is that's number one in my book. Chocolate malt.
Such a boomer thing to say.
Well, it's these days, it's politically correct, and I like chocolate.
Yeah, well, I was trying to add on to what Megan was, trolling you with on Facebook yesterday with her boomer posts.
I saw every post I put on Facebook. I noticed she called me a boring boomer or something to that extent. So I appreciate her very much.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So, all right, so Milkshake, this episode's a little bit different, almost like a halftime episode for us, in between here, where we're doing it a little bit different than our typical top five.
Yeah, no, it's this is probably the first week where we did a lot of prep compared to normal, right? We both went our separate directions, did a lot of work between the episodes. Now we're coming back together to talk about that prep that we did, but this is unusual because we actually did a lot of work between our last episode and tonight. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we have an agent, by the way. I don't know if we've ever told our four listeners.
I think so. And not to cut you off, and I know we love to joke about our two listeners. I think one's my dad and the other one is your wife. But we almost hit 1,000 subscribers last week. So, we may joke around, but big time almost.
Yeah, I mean, we hit that 1,000 mark, and that's why we have an agent now. We had a guy reach out to us, wanted to be our agent a couple weeks back, and he was like, I'd love to help you guys. You should do more interviews. And we're like, yeah, cool. We'll do some interviews. We'll set it up. He's like, I know all the big people everywhere. I can set you guys up, which actually sets this show up. And our agent we'll give him props. Maury Goldwise, is our boy. I appreciate him.
No, he's great.
He's a good guy. He did set up the meetings for us. So that's where what we were getting into here is Randy and I went our separate ways this week, and we kind of split this list. So Maury got us set up with 6 people. In this last week and a half, really, he got us set up for 6 people who are celebrities to do interviews, and we did the interviews.
We did, and we did it in Milkshake fashion, where we wanted to make sure these people would be a good fit for our show. So we didn't want to do the standard black and white type interview. We wanted to bring a little flavor into it, a little milkshake flavor. So I know I did, and I haven't even told Jeff some of the questions I've asked my 3 folks, but I definitely mixed it up with them and had a little bit of fun. How about you?
Yeah, I did. What's unfortunate though is now we're going through some legal things to be able to share the actual interviews, because as great as Maury is with setting up the interviews, which I'll be honest, 1 or 2 of them that I talked to had no idea that they were actually doing an interview for a podcast, but they were there at the right time. They were logged in and, they were talking with me. But one thing Maury's not good at, Mr. Goldwise, I'm not trying to call you out here, but he's not good at the legal structure and the contractual obligations. So we're working through that to be able to share the actual episodes themselves of the interviews. But we thought we'd at least preface an episode and talk about these 6 people and what we talked about with them.
Yeah. Now, to his defense, if you recall when we did the Super Bowl show, ESPN was a little concerned we were using their logo, which we weren't. It was a backdrop to our set. He cleared that up for us. So Maury's done a good job. But yes, we will relentlessly forever tease the man.
He's been in our back pocket for a while, but he's really reached out in the last couple of weeks to be our agent. We've finally signed him to do that. He set up these calls, these interviews, which were great. So I'm curious to hear about the 3 people you talked to, the questions you asked, what other information you got, because I think legally we're allowed to explain what we talked about. We just can't share the actual interviews yet.
Right. It's their voice that we don't have approved. We do have their words in our brains and what we wrote down. But, I had 3 good interviews. I'm just going to tell you real quick, my 3 folks. And if we have to blur out some of it later, we will. But my first one was Martha Stewart. My second one was Al Roker. And my third one was Woody Harrelson from Cheers, for those who don't know Woody. But those were my 3. Who did you get a chance to talk to this week, Jeff?
Yeah, so some really good like B-level artists that you got there, celebrities, at
Solid.
least. Woody is that borders that A to B, and Martha too, all right, so in similar fashion, I don't know if because of Martha he was able to get this connection, but one of mine was Snoop Dogg. Dak Prescott, which for me as a Cowboys fan, I was like, all right, why not? Like, I would love to talk to Dak. And Kevin Spacey, which was a weird one.
Yeah. Now, the one I did turn down because he gave me 4, if you recall. I did turn down, or I have not reached out to Dawn Wells, who was Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island. I think both you and I agreed that a lot of our listeners would have no idea who Mary Ann was. Now, of course, I'm old enough to remember her. And I do think she was hotter than Ginger, but I did not reach out, or I didn't have time to reach out. And maybe we'll feature her on another episode when we need a filler for 5 minutes.
We'll do that. So I think you should start, at least talk to me about your first one, then I'll jump to my first one and we kind of go back and forth like we typically do. I think would be a great way.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. The first one, I'll just go in the order that I just talked about, right? And Martha Stewart is the first one I spoke with. So we'll go with her first. And, Martha and I, we talked about everything from sleep to prison to your boy Snoop, right? So we talked about everything. And we were, and she was, I'll tell you what, out of the 3, she was probably the most humorous of the 3. She took my jabs the right way. She kind of got where Milkshake was coming from. But, we started off with our conversation about her going to prison. And just to give everyone some idea, we today's standards, people are taking millions and billions of dollars, right, and stealing stuff. Martha went to prison for $229,000. Now, for a billionaire, that is no money at all. So she really made no money off her insider trading of ImClone, but she did spend 5 months in jail. So, as we were on that topic, I had to ask her, and I started to talk to her about prison. I don't have a lot of experience there like you do, Jeff, but I did ask her. I said, "Hey, Martha, you're known for your decorating taste. You're a great interior decorator. You do some beautiful crafts. When you were in prison, did you make sure that the carpet matched the drapes?" and that was kind of her response as well. I thought I'd get one of 2 responses. Yeah, that's how I started off. So Milkshake, we mixed it up right away.
Of course.
I thought, one, she'd hang up and call Maury and say, "What the heck?" Or maybe something else. Or she'd laugh and she'd go along. She laughed and she went along. So
I know she did. She has that street cred now. I mean, ever since she got out of prison, like, people respect her more now.
Yeah, and I don't think it hurts that she hangs out with folks like Snoop. Let's be honest. Dinner party in the show. We didn't even talk about dinner party.
He brought her up. He brought her up. Yeah. I
did not bring it up. We kind of did in a roundabout way, but we didn't talk about that show. We talked more about the other things that I mentioned, right? And one of the things I found out that was kind of unique is, we talked about her past, and she's now getting up there in age. I won't elaborate on her age, but she's a big animal lover, and she's got dogs, cats, she's got parakeets, she's got horses, donkeys, she's got all kinds of animals all over her ranch, if you will. And I did ask her, I said, you're getting up there, Martha. And I said, you're almost as old as I am. I said, are you worried about people thinking you're going to be the old cat crazy lady, right? And she said, listen, I only have 2 cats. I have more dogs than cats. So she wasn't concerned about that, but she is a big cat lover. And in her past, as she was going through all these different things that she has done, from raising animals to her dating life and so forth, we didn't get into that too deep, but she did date Anthony Hopkins for a while.
Creepy.
Right. And so a funny story. So she was telling me all about this, and I did have to ask, did he ever offer fava beans and Chianti for dinner? And she said no, but funny you bring up Silence of the Lambs, because honestly, she couldn't continue dating him because she always had the image of him in that movie. So she actually broke that off because of his role that he played.
Yeah.
Not that he was crazy or anything, but true story. She did break up with him because she saw that crazy Hannibal Lecter every time they were together, I guess. But
he played that role so well. Like, he's an amazing actor and he does a lot of different things, but I will always see him as Hannibal Lecter, just like Jaleel White with Steve Urkel. Like, they do these roles so well, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, no. And, I know he's done a tremendous amount of movies, but that's the one that comes to mind. And the minute she said his name, I couldn't have named any other movies he did but Silence of the Lambs. But I know that if you go to his IDBM page, there's probably 1,000 lists, but that's the one he's known for. And so
I snuck on a set of a movie he did one time and actually got in the movie called Hearts in Atlantis. And we snuck on it was a Stephen King like book that was turned into a movie that I guess never really got popular. And they were filming it around where I was living at the time. And I snuck on the set. I was a teenager, I believe. And we got caught, and then we actually got in as some extra work in the back end of it and whatnot. So it was fun.
Hey, did you at least get a free meal out of it?
No, not this time.
Man, that's
some of the other stuff I worked on, yes, but not this one.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of being an extra. You kind of, glam onto all the food that's laying around, but you got to learn to work that a little bit better.
That was a great story, though.
Yeah, and to wrap up with Martha, I won't bore the audience, but the one of the things she brought up that was unique about her is that she actually sleeps with the lights on, and
probably from dating him.
Well, I asked her if it was a prison incident. Was it a traumatic incident? What was it that made her? She said she's always done it. And then actually part of the response was, well, if Snoop shows up, I need to be able to find a lighter real quick. So we'll leave it at that. I can't wait to release the interview because she is an engaging woman, a funny woman, and she took the Milkshake questions like a champ.
Well, all right, that's great. And so mine is almost a counter of that, my first one. Not saying this person wasn't really interesting. They just kind of, I don't want to talk bad, but it's Dak Prescott who I'm first talking about here. And dude is a decent guy. That's the first thing I'll say. Just a very decent guy, very humble, very much just cordial, does great interviews, but there wasn't that flair like I had with Kevin and like I had with Snoop Dogg, so in comparing out of the three, I bet in a normal world, he'd be like, oh, that was a great, guy to interview or whatever. So I'm talking to Dak and I had to ask him. I specifically said, what would you say to Skip Bayless if you could sit in a room with him right now?
You'd probably just punch him.
And in a backstory for anybody that's not, understanding what's happening is Dak, just recently went public and said, he's having some difficulty with depression. His brother just committed suicide. He, COVID, everything kind of hit him, and he opened up about it, which I think is, you got to applaud him, especially in the sports world where there's not allowed, and as a quarterback of America's team, as this team that's in the spotlight always, you're not allowed to have feelings. You're supposed to be a gladiator, go out there on the field and do your job. And basically Skip Bayless said that, publicly after the fact, that he, it was ridiculous that, Dak opened up for it and just mocked him for it.
Yeah, I'm not a big Skip Bayless fan. I watch a lot of sports talk radio TV shows. He's a little too pompous and arrogant for me. Not one of my favorites for sure. I know he does a show with Shannon. Shannon's fine, but that show is probably my least favorite of all the sports talk shows. So
they're the Milkshake of the sports talk shows. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not a Dak fan at all. I'm a Washington football team guy.
Go football team.
Whatever we're called this week, right? So the football team, go football team. But Dak setting himself up for a big payday here soon, and I hope he gets it.
So that was another question I had for him. As a fan of the Cowboys, and been a fan since I was probably 1 or 2 years old, truly. And as a fan, I asked him, dude, $30 million they put in front of you, $30 million a year. And I said, you didn't deserve that. That's not the pay level that you're supposed to be at for not winning but one playoff game. 30 million a year. Why did you not accept that? That was another question I had for him, because nobody can fathom, like, you can't understand. And I won't give away what his answer is. I want to save that for the interview.
Good.
But I will say some of the things that he talked to me about started to make me understand a little bit more why he didn't accept that deal. And it wasn't selfish, like, I deserve more, I need to be on this pedestal. It was more strategic in the sense that a lot of the way I look at it, and he didn't blatantly say this, but I took it based on, just his mannerisms and the way that he talked and the way that he is with the team. I think it was a strategy for himself to work harder and to achieve more and to actually start winning and not get that payday and get complacent with it and, just fall off the face. Like, the dude wants to play. And my last question with him was specifically, number one, when will the Cowboys win a Super Bowl? Like,
never.
Yeah, well, whatever.
After the Washington football team.
When do you think you're going to lose your job with the Cowboys? And I asked him that as the follow-up question, when do you think that the rug's going to get pulled out? We all know that Jerry dude will make a decision like it's like just off the fly. He's a wild card when it comes to this stuff. Yep. And if you're not in his favor at that given moment, he does not care what you've done for him over the years and how much money. And so it was an interesting answer we got back. I won't ruin it. We're setting it up for it. But, a couple things that I learned about him, in the process of it. And one of these things was kind of probably plays on to why he didn't accept the deal either, is he's already gotten paid out $50 million in endorsements, at this point already. So he's got money in the bank. I mean, he does, and he's going to get more endorsements. It's a high-profile team. You're the quarterback of that team. You're going to get some endorsements out of it. And he's an interesting guy to watch, and he's got this charisma about him that makes you want to root for him, even if you aren't a fan.
And he's got a lot of weapons around him, so he's going to look good. He will look good. Yep.
Well, and I will say one thing he shared with me that I really respect it more, and especially as a fan, but just a fan of the sports in general, is there was a Kanye West concert that was happening, and he got invited, go hang out with Kanye, go to the concert or whatever. And he skipped it to prepare for the next game. Literally said, I can't, guys, I got to work on my game. I gotta focus on this. And to me, that was a great sign, because a lot of quarterbacks, maybe not as much quarterbacks, but a lot of other players, specifically in other positions, absolutely would have went there. It's for the limelight. I get to hang out with Kanye. I'm going to go to this concert. I'm going to do what I want. This is why I'm here doing this, for this fame and fortune and all this celebrity with it. So he didn't do that. I like that. He talked a little bit about when he got jumped back in 2014 at a spring break party back when he was in college. He talked about his tattoos. I think he has about 18 of them now. He couldn't keep count. At this point, he keeps getting them. Some of them are for his mom. His favorite hobby is fishing, which was surprising to me. He said he sucks at it, but he loves doing it. And his real name, and a lot of people probably know this, is Rain Dakota Prescott.
I like the rain part. Yeah, the rain part's good.
And the last thing we talked about was his college career. He was on pace. He was saying it's kind of one of those things that this is why he works harder now, but he was on pace for the Heisman Trophy one year. And at Mississippi, like Mississippi State, that's rare. Like, that's very rare, a quarterback from there. So he was on pace, and then he started fumbling a lot the second half of the season, and he dropped to like 8th, in the running for that. And he said it's stuck with him since then, to where he's constantly working harder to achieve the best, because he got 14 quarterbacks got drafted before him that year, after the fact. And like, he's understood that it put him in a bad place. So, but he's,
yeah, and as a Dallas quarterback like Tony Romo, the last thing you want to do is fumble the ball. So
knew you were going to go there, but he still holds 38 records in Mississippi State. So
no, he's a great guy. And listen, I know they franchise tagged him for the second year in a row. Where he's going to make his money, obviously, he's still making $28 million a year, probably as a franchise player, but his signing bonus. So hopefully he doesn't get hurt, where he doesn't get to take advantage of what he's accomplished, and he gets that big signing bonus and takes some of Jerry's money. Because I'm just not a big Jerry fan. I do like how Jerry markets himself. He's obnoxious as hell, but I hope Dak gets a little bit of his money.
Well, out of the two, and I don't want to sidestep on this too much, but out of the two owners between Dan Snyder and Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones is a whiz at marketing, is a whiz at building a brand. Look at Dan Snyder right now with the football team thing. People think that's genius. I don't.
No. Listen, I've got I'm from the DC area, and although I'm really truly an Atlanta Falcon fan these days, I've been down here for about 15 years. I grew up for 40 years in DC and loved the old ownership of the Redskins, and I have a bunch of buddies up in DC, what we call the sports junkies, George, Ron, Chris, and Denny. And we talk about Snyder, and we all, to a man, wish he would sell the team. We're not a Dan Snyder fan at all. It's the heritage that we like, and that's what we still root for.
So talk to me about your second one, man. And mine gets gradually more interesting. That's why I share this in this order.
Mine are kind of all down the same line, right? I have one style, and that's just goofy, I guess, right? I might be 55, but I interview like I'm 16. And some folks take it well, like a Martha Stewart, and even, Woody Harrelson to some extent. Al Roker, not as much. However, he did have those uncomfortable chuckles at times. But Al's a little more, although the conversation, let me start off by saying, the conversation was about weather. It was about his weight loss, his NBC days, and so forth. And he actually started off talking a little bit about the NBC days, and he, we were talking about humor and funny, because I did tell him, I said, listen, some of my questions might be a little off the mark, because I come at it from a different angle. I want to try to make you laugh. I want to make you feel comfortable, and I want the conversation to be that way. And he said that he thinks, and this is true, he thinks that Brian Williams is the funniest man he's ever met on this planet. Which, now, I love Brian Williams, and so I had to ask him. I said, well, did he ever tell you the joke about the anchor who blew $10 million a year on a fake news story? And I don't think he got where I was going with that. Like I said, I love Brian Williams, but I think he said he was shot down or shot at when he was in Afghanistan or Iran. And obviously the story was somewhat exaggerated.
Very much. Kind of like our show.
Yeah. And I don't think Al either got it or appreciated it. But, like I said, I like Brian Williams, but I've got a story for everybody. So that was how he kind of started off. I think I put him back on his heels, and he kind of stayed back there. So as we drifted off from some of the NBC stuff, we moved over to his weight loss and his surgery and all that. And as he talked about, the changes in his diet, what he would drink versus what he used to drink, what he would eat versus what he used to eat. I did have to ask him. I said, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about weight loss and what happened. And I asked, did Matt Lauer ever hit on you when you had man boobs?
No, you didn't.
I did. And I think I actually got a chuckle from him on that one, but not a comfortable chuckle. You know what I mean? Listen, I liked Matt Lauer like I like Brian Williams, but they both have tainted past. And if he's going to talk about them, so am I. You'll have to wait to hear what his actual answer was, but that is not a true scenario. Matt Lauer never did.
So Matt didn't. So we're
never focused on
that out there. We're not like creating this drama, this extra drama that didn't exist.
Not at all. And so we talked about that. So those were the NBC days and the weight loss days. And I did ask him, what do you miss most? And he was actually open about this. And this is where he kind of had a little bit of fun. I said, what do you miss most about your old NBC days when you were Al Roker, and he said, everyone thought when I was heavy, I had the perception of being jolly. He said, people see me differently today, and I'm still the same guy, but I don't feel as jolly. I had
he's hungry.
Yeah, no, exactly. And funny you say that, because he said that fun size candy bars are not fun size. he did say that. That is an actual quote. So I'm kind of ruining the interview.
Sure.
But he did say that, he's cut back his sugar intake, and occasionally he will partake in a fun-sized candy bar, which we know is like a 1-inch bite of chocolate, and that's about it.
You're used to that, aren't you?
That just, yeah. That.
So this episode, we actually have a sponsor. We joke about it a lot.
First sponsor. I love this, man.
Yeah, and it's actually me. doing it for another podcast.
So you're writing me a check to sponsor our show.
Yeah, so we're Yesteryear Untold is another podcast that I'm doing that is completely different than Milkshake, and it's about history, but it's about the untold stories of history, the fun stuff in history.
Love it. Well, I'm glad they're a sponsor, and I'm glad to take your money.
Yeah, so that's it. So go listen to Yesteryear Untold. I should remember the name at the same time.
Yesteryear Untold. I love it. Great title. Great show. I've listened to it. I'm impressed with it. I wish I was part of it.
So my next one was a little more interesting than Dak, just because it's Snoop Dogg. And Snoop, man, yeah, and that there was a lot of that for real. That you hear a lot of that noise in the interview. I mean, he couldn't stop, and that's what Snoop's known for. We all get it or whatever, but Snoop cracks me up in a lot of ways. I don't know if you've ever watched him do like voiceovers of just random YouTube videos that he watches.
Haven't seen those. No,
they're so funny, and it's like him just like watching it for the first time and just being a commentator of it, and it's great. It's really great. So one of the first questions I hit him with, just because I had to get in it, like this was a short interview. Snoop was like in and out. Dude was, you're talking A-list guy.
Yeah, he's still A-list. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got an A-lister.
And he wasn't trying to like, he was like, he's like, fuck a milkshake. What is, like, he was just like, I thought there'd be a milkshake. And I was like, look, man, I don't know what you were told. Like
Maury.
Yeah, more. I don't know what Maury promised. He's like, man, I'll give you like 5 minutes. I was like, all right, cool. Let's do it real quick. So, and one of the first questions I had with him, I said, all right, so when you look back at young Snoop, and young Snoop, which he shared, was an actual criminal. I mean, he really was. He was a former member of the Rollin' 20 Crips, and he now speaks out against gun control and things like that. But he really earned his gang credentials. I listened to him and Dr. Dre when I was young. Like I listened to all of their albums. And I said, so let's go back to young Snoop during this gangster rap war that was going on. Young Snoop, did you imagine that 20 to 30 years later that you would be hanging out doing a TV show with Martha Stewart and ultimately just selling out for money? Like, did you imagine that would be your life?
Well, I don't know if he sold out. I think it's, Snoop's just finding a new way to market himself, man. But yeah, you could call it selling out, but
I won't give his response, okay. But he agreed. He was like, yeah, like, but and then he talked about it in his own Snoop kind of way. But I had to throw that question out there because it's such a, when I explain to my kids like what gangster rap is and try to walk them through the world, and then I all of a sudden play a song and Snoop Dogg's in it, they're like, Snoop Dogg, like the guy in the Visa commercials, the guy that's doing like, that kind. I'm like, yeah, that same guy. Like that's him. This is where he's at now at grandpa's stage. But there's a couple interesting things about him we talked about. His parents nicknamed him Snoopy. That's where the name came from. I was curious about that. And so that's where it came from. His real name's Calvin Brodus. He's very much into youth football, mainly because of his sons, and he was coaching them, but he coached for like 15 years. He actually has a Netflix show out that he was dropping, that they might be doing a reunion show for, called Coach Snoop. That's up on there. I haven't seen it. But I guess Netflix isn't really promoting it like that because I didn't know much about it. Honestly, I felt kind of bad as putting together these interview questions. I didn't know it when he brought it out. I was like, are you making this up right now? Like,
didn't he have one of his sons play at UCLA or something, or no?
Yes. Okay. I don't remember what college it was. Yes. And I think though, one of his sons is almost in the NFL, or if not, got drafted somewhere around there. One of them plays basketball somewhere. I don't know. Like, he's got some kid places. He's went by different monikers and alter egos through his career, doing reggae music, even doing some country stuff and whatnot. He Snoopzilla, Snoop Lion, which was the reggae album that he had. He talked about that. And then Snoop Todd, he talked about, and Snoop Todd is a white guy who thinks that he's a ladies' man. That's what you got to look up Snoop Todd stuff, because I did after the fact. So it was interesting. So a couple other questions I asked him when we got into this. I just had to ask this because it was based on one of our other episodes. I asked him, who would you rather party with? Because Snoop, like, he's gotten banned from countries from partying too much, like, truly, and got arrested. I remember in Virginia Beach, he was supposed to do a concert, and right before he was supposed to go on, he got arrested and put in jail from the last time he was in the city and did something. And so anyway, so who would you rather party with, Larry David or Bill Murray? And so it was an interesting answer what came out of that. And he absolutely not what I expected. So that we'll hang on and hear what he said about that. He did go into something that I didn't know, but I can believe it. He said his IQ is 147.
All right, so he's up near the genius level, right? Is it
But
150 or 160 that's genius?
yeah, it's right around 150, I think.
I think combined we hit that, right?
Almost. But I was like, look, man, after all the weed you smoke, there's no way you're still at 147. Like there, and he's like, it opens up my mind, bro. Like it's so the last question I asked him, and I will share the answer. I said, how much do you smoke a day, Snoop? Like truly, we all know you do. Like how much? And he said 80 blunts per
80
day.
a day.
80 blunts per day. Think about that in the time frame of a day. How many? And the couple minute interview we had, he probably had 17 of them. So yeah, he functions with it. And good dude. He's still married to his high school sweetheart. Like they had a show together years ago that was really great. Like very upstanding kind of guy that you wouldn't look back and know as a ex-criminal gang member kind of person. Like just a good dude that's trying to do good stuff in life, but he's funny as hell about it.
Now, it's funny you talk about the blunts because he was on Howard Stern pre-pandemic, and I remember this interview, and it may have come up on yours even, but one of the interesting facts I know about Snoop is he actually has a guy on his payroll whose only job is to roll.
Yes, he did bring that up because I asked, how do you even do that in the course of the time? And he did. He brought that up. Yep.
Amazing. Yeah. So imagine you have enough cash just to pay someone to sit there and roll all day for you.
I mean, I can't imagine it. So yeah, Snoop, it was interesting, man. It was a short interview, A-list kind of guy. I'm glad we got it. Again, none of the actual legalities were worked out like they should have been for us to share the interviews for any of them. But because there was no real paperwork done, Maury just set it up, said, hey, here's the time and the place, log in. But yeah, it was interesting. Let me hear your last one, man, and then I'm excited to talk to you about my last one. So
yeah, so my last one, I kind of am a Woody Harrelson fan, so I didn't want to poke the bear like I did with Al and with Martha. So I was concerned if I did poke him too much, it would turn him off and he'd hang up on me right away. So I was a little bit more gentle with Woody than I was with the other two. But we talked about everything from sports to Cheers, which is a big part of my upbringing as well. I love this show, and his diet. I mean, we talked about all of that, and he is just to jump into the diet. Not that this is exciting, and I'll share. He's a vegan, and I have no vegan jokes. Right, the only vegan joke I know is cheesy, so I won't even say the vegan joke. So, but
actually, cheesy is kind of funny. For
it
a
is.
vegan joke.
That was
that
a joke.
joke.
That was a joke. Can you put in some canned laughter after I said that, just so it sounds like it was a real joke? But
no, I got it. I was like, all right.
No, that was it. But he is a vegan, and he changed his diet. There's nothing funny there. There's not much to talk about. Sure. I did ask, how do you fill yourself up when you're a vegan? And he just talked about all the different foods he eats, blah, blah, blah. Nothing exciting. However, we got on the topic of Cheers, and this is where it's near and dear to my heart. A couple interesting facts that I will share. I won't give the full answers to everything he said, but the theme song to Cheers, where everybody knows your name, everyone knows the song, I think. There was rumors for years that he was the one who actually sang that song. And that went on well after he was a cast member. If you recall, he didn't join the cast until season 4. But the rumor was he got the part because he sang the song. And there's still some debate out there, but he answers that question. So I won't get into who actually sang the song.
Right.
But I do know, and I'll save that for when we actually air the interview. The second thing about Cheers that I thought was really interesting is, as it was coming to an end, his character Woody Boyd from Hanover, Indiana, where he actually went to college. So they always mocked him for being a Hanover boy. But when the show was coming to an end, they offered him the show. They said, hey, Cheers will be yours. Sam will ride off into the sunset on a yacht or whatever it might be, and you take over the bar, and Cheers will be Woody's. He actually turned down that spot, which actually brought up the show Frasier. Frasier was never going to be on TV had Woody continued on Cheers. By him
Mm,
opting out of Cheers, Frasier came on, which ended up being a classic show. If you're not a Frasier
sure.
fan, go back and watch it. It was brilliant, actually. Not as classic as Cheers, but the writing was phenomenal. So that's where Frasier came from. Woody actually turning down a job. And the last thing we talked about really was well, there was two. A lot of folks know he's been arrested for a number of incidences. One of the big ones was when he punched a cop. He actually got arrested for dancing in the middle of the street for no reason, blocking traffic. He was obviously smoking. He
Mhm.
will say that he's a big proponent of legalizing marijuana, much like Snoop, I guess.
Yep.
So he got arrested, thrown into a van, jumped out of the moving van. Cop came chasing him. He punched the cop and so forth. And I said, "What were you thinking?" And he said, I had the foresight to know that Black Lives Matter. So he actually joked about why he got arrested. Black Lives Matter was not an issue back in 1983, but he had to make a joke about it. So it was pretty good. And we did talk about he's got a number of movies around sports, right? The first one was White Man Can't Jump.
Yep.
And he said, "Well, I'm actually a really good basketball player, or I thought I was." He said, "I played in high school. I did pretty well." And a lot of us have stories like that. "Oh, I was really good in high school. I was all state. I was this, I was that." Just didn't make it to the college level. So Woody thought he was actually a good college or a good basketball player. So he gets on the set and he had no idea who one of the choreographers of the set was. And the guy said, "You're good at basketball?" And Woody said, "Man, I'm really good." He said, I'll take anybody on one-on-one." So he started playing this guy and he got crushed. It was like a game to 11. I think it was 11-1. He later found out it was Bob Lanier. Bob Lanier is
Mm,
a Hall of Fame basketball player. He didn't even
mm.
know he was playing against a Hall of Fame player, but he got whipped pretty bad. And the other movie, I'm not going to ruin it, but he had to wear a fake hand for it. Was his bowling movie. Woody had never bowled in his life prior to that movie.
Yep. It's a great movie.
Yeah, half the scenes they had, or half the footage of him bowling, not half, nearly all of it was taken out. Although it looks like he's a great bowler, he threw more gutter balls. They said actually the entire time they filmed that movie, he threw one strike. And it was kind of like an
Wow.
accident. Right. So can you imagine he probably threw, 2,000 balls and only one of them was a strike. So he admitted he was a bad bowler. He thought he was a great basketball player. Now he's been humbled and very modest individual. So it was great talking to him. I did ask about a Cheers reunion. I'm going to leave that because uh, all the characters from the show are still alive except for the coach who was in the first 3 years. He did pass away, and that's why Woody came to the show. But all the main characters of Cheers are still alive, and I did ask if there's going to be a reunion, and we'll leave that answer to an
Yeah.
episode because that's a big one. That is a big one that people do want to know who are of my generation, I think. So
But how great would it be if you could have released that on Milkshake first?
you
That
know what? I think even Mari told me I couldn't tell the answer to that one. So
I don't trust Maury.
I know I'm under lock and key on some of these answers because, as you know, we had to run them by him, and he was like, "That's okay. That's no, you can't say that."
You just let me know after
Yep,
we cut this off. So
exactly. So that was the end of it, and that was the last question I had was, will there be a reunion? These are
yeah,
where people are making millions of dollars. I do have the answer, and hopefully we'll release it before ET does or something. So
yeah,
that's it for Milkshake,
it'll-
man. Yeah.
that's awesome, dude. So Woody, good old Woody, man, Kingpin, that movie.
Yep.
I that scene where they like cut his hand off through the the where the ball comes up, whatever that thing's called. I don't even know what that's called.
Ball return.
Yeah, is that what it is? A ball return.
Yep.
You know what
It's
a ball
it's
return is.
fancy.
Yeah. So with the ball return, it just always like gets me watching that part of it. But I like that movie on White Man Can't Jump's a class.
Yeah, there's two great movies with prosthetics. Obviously Kingpin.
We should do a show on that.
Yeah. Well, and the other one was Happy Gilmore.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Oh, both of them, man, where they had the
Yeah,
fake hands. It
yeah.
just makes me laugh.
You said
Don't
there's
ask me
two
why.
great movies. We should do a whole episode just
We
on
should.
the great
On movies
moments
with
in history.
fake. Well, yeah, Forrest Gump, he had fake legs.
Yeah.
We could go a long
Did he?
way with that.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
theme.
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lieutenant Dan, you got legs.
Ice cream. All right. So all right, let me talk about my last one and then
Please.
we'll get into it. Used to be A-lister actor, Kevin Spacey. You definitely recognize his name. You know who he is. You know stuff he's done, and he's done great movies. An amazing, amazing actor. for sure. I can't take that away from him, no matter what he's done in his past and everything else. He really is. I'll tell you, man, it was tense. And he hasn't talked to a lot of people since the charges and accusations and things have come about with him, with, you know, several, if not many, various children in Hollywood, male children specifically. But Maury somehow pulled this one off. And I don't know if it's pulling something off, but it was awkward. Like, I wanted to cut our video off from us looking at each other because I was just intimidated by the man. So
he can be intense. Yes, he's got that.
Well, I asked some tough things too, and I don't think that helped. And so I'll get into some of the background stuff first. Some of the kind of, like, one of the things I asked him, and it didn't really set the tone right. I just said, you know, what is it like legitimately being on top of the world in A-list Hollywood, and then the next minute you're a complete reject? You know, what is that feeling like, that you're just up here and then immediately you're down here and people won't even like return your calls? They won't be associated with you. They're going to like delete you out of pictures that they used to have in with you. Like, what does that feel like? And he answered, but that set the tone for the rest of our conversation. I probably should have waited a little bit on that one before asking that question, but I you know, man, here at Milkshake, we do the hard hitting questions.
You do the hard hitting questions. I do the offbeat ones that,
well, I had another,
yeah.
so I had a couple. So he talked a little bit about his like some of his things, like he loves wrestling. He's obsessed with wrestling. I had a couple jokes about that with him that didn't go over so well. And then he brought up something about his childhood I thought was interesting. He said when he was younger, he burnt down his sister's treehouse. And when he did that, his parents sent him to military school. This was in high school, basically. So he went to military school in 10th, 11th grade. And then he was expelled from military school for hitting a classmate with a tire. So he burned his sister's tree.
Like a car tire or a bike tire? Okay.
Yes. Goes to military school, hits him with the tire. And then he goes to public school after that, after getting kicked out of military school, high school in Los Angeles. And he was selected class valedictorian.
Wow.
After that, his 12th grade year. So he was proud of this. He's like, look, you can just kind of do what you want in life and you still can end up where you want to be. And I don't know if that's where he's telling himself right now. Like, I'll kind of get back to that. He did talk on a podcast a couple months back, and it didn't go well for him. And that might be one of the reasons that we can't release some of the stuff he's saying. I don't know. He knew he was doing an interview. I think in his mind, it was like, what's a milkshake? Nobody listens to this. Yeah, I'll do it. I think I'm getting a little bit of money for it, which I don't think Maury paid anybody for these interviews or anything, but we'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah, not from our sponsors, because I think we get $127 a week or a month or a year from those guys. So
well, they're doing a great job. But he was on this podcast and he was talking. It was during kind of the beginning of the pandemic, and he basically said, I can relate to all you guys that have lost your job during the pandemic, because I've lost my job and it's hard. And so he got a lot of flack for that and a lot of pushback, because people were like, it's not the same thing. You know, like we're out there honestly working, and then this virus comes and takes over and we lose our job. We're not out there doing things to little kids and intimidating them and being, you know, a complete criminal, you know, and accused criminal. I'm putting that out there. I'm not going to say what the man really did or what he didn't do.
Alleged.
He said the criminal charges were dropped on him.
Money.
So when he said that, I had to ask the question, you know, Kevin, between me, you, and a milkshake right now, did you do it? In that silence,
I was going to say, how quiet was it when you asked that? Yeah.
It was super silent. I read the room. I was scared. I was like stumbling on my word. I was like, did you do and so back in high school, how did you get that? How did the 12th grade year you were like, and I just totally stumbled on my words. And finally I went to the last question, because I just needed to get on up out of here. Right. I don't want this man to figure out where I live. And the last question I had for him, I don't even know why I asked, because it was one of those where I was scrambling. I just said, for some reason, Kevin, I've seen a lot of your films, House of Cards, TV shows. Like, I've seen you in a lot of stuff. But for some reason, every time I see you on my television, I feel like your breath stinks. Is this true? Is it true? Can you tell me that?
Oh, that's great. What did he say? Did he reply? Or you don't have to tell me the answer, but did he reply?
He did reply, and then it abruptly ended our interview, and we were done. But I was scrambling. I really was struggling to come up with another question because I felt really awkward. I was scared for my life, and I was like, "What do I ask him?" And then I was like, "You know what? His breath looks like it stinks."
You should have offered him a Tic Tac. Hey, Kev, here, you want a Tic Tac?
A mint flavored milkshake. But yeah, so that was my interviews, man. I hope we can share these week after week, and Maury gets his stuff together so we can do it. Regardless, this was a nice break and change in pace from our typical top fives.
Yeah, no top five. Yeah, nothing this week, right?
But we'll get back to that, and then from time to time we'll have an occasional interview, and we'll roll that in. But we kind of play by our own rules here, and do what we want to do.
We'll see what happens. But next week, I think we're back to our top five until we can release these interviews. But it's been a great episode of Milkshake. I hope that people have enjoyed our offbeat type interviews that we had with some A and B celebrities, maybe C at some point. But
C levels,
yeah, there was, Dawn Wells would have been D, my fourth choice. But we didn't have to go that far down.
You like the D.
I do.
So.
All right, man. Well, that was a great time. I loved hearing about your stories there. Kevin Spacey, I'm glad I wasn't part of that interview for sure.
I love you, Kevin. I love you, Kevin. I just want to put that out. Actually, I don't want to put that out there.
He loved you. He loved you.
Good old Kevin. Yeah, and then I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to accuse the man of anything. He is, accused of things. So we'll leave it at that. The government, the legal system, people can figure that out. I don't need to figure that out for him.
Nope. Let his house of cards fall or stay up.
You like when it stays up. So anyway, Milkshake. We did another episode, man. Number 9 in the books. I love it.
I'm exhausted. Are we going to go for 10?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go for 10.
Sounds like a winner.
Milkshake.